The key clicked in the lock, but it didn't turn. My daughter's smile froze. My son-in-law's hand shook as he tried again. Then he saw the note taped to the door. His face went pale. She started screaming before she even finished reading it. They thought they'd sold my house and sent me to a nursing home. But I had other plans. Plans worth nearly $1 million. The rain was drumming softly against my kitchen window that evening, the kind of steady patter that makes a house feel quieter than usual. I was making tea, chamomile, because it was supposed to help me sleep, when my phone buzzed. It was my daughter, Claire. She rarely called without texting first, so I answered quickly, balancing the phone between my ear and shoulder while I reached for the kettle. "Dad, hi," she began, but the sound was faint. I could hear voices in the background. And then, a door closed. Her voice dropped. "He's going to a nursing home," she said. For a moment, I thought I misheard. My hand froze over the teacup. "Yeah," another voice, her husband, Mark, replied. "It's for the best. We can't keep looking after him. And with the house sold, we'll finally have some breathing room." Something in my chest went cold. My mouth went dry. They didn't know I could hear them. I realized then. She hadn't hung up the phone. Claire's voice was low, but clear. "We'll tell him it's temporary, but once the sale goes through, well, there's no going back. Nearly $1 million. Mark, we can finally get that place we've been talking about." A faint laugh. Then Mark again. "Honestly, he'll be better off there. And we'll be better off without the constant babysitting." The kettle whistled shrilly, but I barely heard it. My grip on the phone tightened, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. A nursing home. Selling my house. Behind my back. The home where I'd raised her. The place I'd poured decades of my life into. My late wife's garden. My workshop. Every memory. Treated like a bargaining chip. I stood there in the kitchen, my tea forgotten, listening to my own daughter, my only child, plot to push me out of my life. I didn't speak, didn't interrupt, didn't even let the call drop. I just listened, and in that quiet, something in me hardened. They thought I was old, helpless, that I'd just accept whatever they decided for me. But if they wanted to play this game, they were about to find out just how wrong they were. I didn't say a word to Claire about what I'd overheard. Not that night, not the next morning. Instead, I moved through the days like a ghost, watching, listening, piecing together the truth without tipping my hand. Claire and Mark visited more often now, but not for me. I could see the way their eyes roamed over the house, measuring, evaluating. My home wasn't mine anymore in their minds. It was real estate. One Saturday, they came by with fake smiles plastered across their faces. Claire brought me store-bought cookies, she claimed, were just like Mom used to make. And Mark spent an hour in the garage, helping me move things around. But I noticed how he lingered in the basement, checking the foundation, looking at the furnace. They weren't visiting, they were appraising. At dinner that night, Claire slid a folder across the table. "Dad," she began gently, "I've been thinking about how hard it must be for you to keep up with the place. You deserve to relax. Too, to have people looking after you." Mark chimed in. "There's this wonderful retirement community just outside the city. Great staff, nice rooms. You'd have your own space, but all your meals and chores would be taken care of." I stared at the two of them, my fork hovering over my plate. They looked so earnest, so rehearsed. I wanted to scream, to slam my fists on the table and tell them I knew everything. But I didn't. I smiled instead. "That's very thoughtful of you," I said evenly. "Why don't you tell me more about it?" Claire's shoulders relaxed. Mark smirked ever so slightly, and right there, over roast chicken and mashed potatoes, they started laying out their plan. How the move would be temporary. How they'd help me sell the house so I wouldn't have to deal with the hassle. How the money could go toward my comfort in the years ahead. They spoke as if the decision had already been made. As if I were just a passive spectator in my own life. When they left that night, Mark patted me on the shoulder, like a charity case. "Don't worry, Dad, we'll take care of everything." I closed the door, leaned against it, and let out a long breath. They thought they were the ones in control. They had no idea that the very thing they wanted most was the weapon I was about to use against them. For the next few weeks, I played the role they expected, the slow-moving, slightly forgetful old man. I asked Mark to help me change a light bulb I could easily reach. I let Claire remind me about doctor's appointments I already knew by heart. I even pretended to forget where I'd left my glasses, while they sat right on top of my head. They bought it, every bit of it, but behind the scenes, I was busy, very busy. First, I called my lawyer, Mr. Harlan, the same man who'd handled my affairs for nearly 30 years. I told him everything, what I had overheard, how they were circling like vultures, and exactly what I planned to do. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he chuckled, a slow, knowing sound. "I've seen plenty of greedy children, Dennis," he said, "but I think yours are about to get the shock of their lives." We drew up papers, changed account access, transferred certain assets into places they couldn't touch. The house, my house was legally repositioned in a way that would make it untouchable to them. Then came step 2. I quietly listed the house for sale, but not in the usual way. No signs, no online listings they could stumble across. It was an exclusive, off-market deal through one of Mr. Harlan's connections. The kind of transaction that moves fast and doesn't leave a public trail until it's long done. I didn't even pack much. Just the essentials, tucked away in boxes in the corner of my bedroom. The rest was going to be part of the theater. Weeks passed. They kept visiting, probably thinking they were managing me toward their goal. And all the while, the sale inched forward in silence. The day I signed the final papers, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because I was getting rid of the house, but because I was taking it away from them. One evening, Mark dropped by with Claire. Both of them dressed a little too nicely for a casual visit. I suspected they'd been out celebrating, probably already counting their money. "Dad," Claire said, resting her hand on mine, "we've found the perfect place for you. We can move forward anytime you're ready." I smiled. That's wonderful news. And for the first time in weeks, I meant it. Just not for the reasons they thought. They thought they were being clever, taking that week-long business trip just before everything was supposed to finalize. I knew exactly what they were doing, making themselves scarce, so I'd feel abandoned and more likely to accept their plan. But the truth was, their timing couldn't have been more perfect. While they were off smiling at hotel breakfasts and swiping corporate credit cards, the sale closed. My things were already moved into a small, warm apartment across town, cozy, manageable, and, most importantly, mine alone. The day before they were due back, I left the house one last time. I took my time walking through each room. The living room, where I'd read bedtime stories to Claire. The kitchen, where Mark and I had made pancakes on Saturday mornings. All those memories, now just ghosts in a space they would never claim. Before I left, I placed a note on the inside of the front door, carefully taped, perfectly visible the moment they stepped inside. Then I locked the door with the new owner's keys and dropped the old ones into my pocket. When they pulled up the next afternoon, I was there to see it in person. But the neighbors later told me every detail. The car door slammed. They came up the walk, laughing about something. Mark carrying his suitcase, Claire scrolling on her phone. The first hitch came when the key didn't turn. Mark tried again, harder this time, his jaw tightening. Claire leaned in, a frown forming. Then she saw the note. According to Mrs. Patterson from next door. Claire's voice cut through the whole street. "What the hell is this?" Mark ripped it off the door and started reading aloud. By the time he got halfway through, his voice cracked. By the end, he was shouting, not at me, but at the cold reality settling in. And then came the sound I had waited for. Pure, unfiltered frustration. Screaming, cursing, the kind that doesn't just come from losing money, but from realizing you never had the control you thought you did. The note wasn't long, barely half a page, but I'd spent hours perfecting every word. I wanted it to be sharp enough to cut, but calm enough to show I wasn't acting out of rage. No, this was about something far more dangerous to them. Dignity. Claire, Mark, I know about the nursing home. I know you thought I'd die quietly, except being packed away, like an old sweater you no longer wear. I also know about the house sale. Every cent of the $995,000 you were planning to pocket. You may have forgotten, but my name is still on every document, which means I was able to sell the house before you could, and keep the proceeds for myself. While you were away, the sale closed. The house you're standing in front of right now, it belongs to someone else. Don't bother trying your key. It won't work. I've found my own place. It's small, quiet, and most importantly, mine. The next time you think about where to put me, remember, I'm not a burden. I'm your father, and I'll decide where I go. The neighbors told me that when Mark reached that last line, he went completely still, like his brain had jammed. Claire, on the other hand, erupted, pacing up and down the porch, muttering about legal action and ungrateful parents. Her voice pitching higher and higher until even Mrs. Patterson shut her window. They didn't even try calling me. Maybe they knew I wouldn't answer. Maybe they knew there was nothing left to say. I didn't need to see their faces to feel the satisfaction. It wasn't tea about money, though I certainly wasn't tea about to hand over nearly $1 million to people who thought so little of me. It was about control. About proving that the man they dismissed as old and helpless still had a mind sharp enough to outplay them. That night, in my new apartment, I made myself a cup of tea, sat by the window, and smiled for the first time in weeks. They had tried to erase me from my own life. Instead, I'd erase them from the only prize they cared about. In the days that followed, I didn't hear a word from Claire or Mark. No text, no call, no angry letter. I suppose silence was the only weapon they had left, and honestly, it was a blessing. I poured the house sale money into a secure account, spoke with a lawyer to make sure every legal knot was tied, and then focused on building a life that was mine again. A smaller place, yes, but peaceful. No one lurking in the hallway, no whispered phone calls plotting my future, no sense of walking on eggshells in my own home. I took up gardening again, joined a chess club, started seeing old friends for coffee without having to ask for a ride. Every morning, I woke up knowing my time and choices were my own, and I realized something. I hadn't just gotten revenge. I'd gotten freedom. Looking back, I'm almost grateful for that overheard phone call, because without it, I might have never known how little they respected me, and I might still be living under the same roof, slowly disappearing from my own life. Here's what I've learned. People can only take advantage of you if you give them permission. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is quietly take back control, without warning. Claire and Mark thought they'd won. They thought they'd reduce me to a quiet shadow in a nursing home, stripped of my home, my money, and my dignity. Instead, they came home to a locked door, an empty house, and a father who refused to vanish. Justice doesn't always need shouting. Sometimes, it's a locked door and a note that leaves them screaming on the porch. If you like this story, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you overheard your own family plotting against you? Don't forget to subscribe for more stories where justice finds its way.